Edward Dowd. Thank you for coming in, sir. Worked on Wall Street, BlackRock. You managed $14 billion in equity investments. And then you write a book, fantastic book. This one blew my mind because as we were talking before, I had Dr. Malone, Peter McCullough, but Cause of Death Unknown, that's just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I shouldn't be here. I should not be a media phenomenon. Let's go back to the 70s. There was something called the swine flu vaccine. They pulled it after 25 deaths. That's when we had regulatory agencies not captured by moneyed interests. And this is all about money, follow the money, and corruption. So fast forward, why am I here? I'm just a guy that notices patterns, pattern recognition. That's how I make money on Wall Street. My job was to be ahead of the crowd, notice when the perception was changing and a new reality was emerging and get on the trend before my peers did. And then once I got in the stock, then go around to all my peers and convince them of the new trends so they would buy after me and push the stock up. That's what I did. So, in early 2020, I personally didn't take the vaccine primarily because I'm from Wall Street. I knew some things. I knew that it took 7 to 10 years for safety data. I knew this was rushed under Operation Warp Speed. That made no sense to me. I know how manufacturing processes work from my time on Wall Street. Safety protocols cut, corners cut. I mean, it just sounded like a disaster. And then I also knew that it was going to be. It was a new technology that had never been tested on humans. So I naively said, I'll wait. I suspect most people won't take it because they're thinking like me, but I didn't realize the propaganda campaign that the nation and the globe would be submitted to that basically told lies, lots of lies, and hid information, like the mere fact that the clinical trial was 28 days and they wanted to hide the clinical trial data for 75 years. So I became horrified. And then, the vaccine rolls out. I start hearing anecdotes. And one thing I know about statistics is anecdotally, I shouldn't hear anything. I mean, if it's a safe vaccine, you don't hear things. I heard lots of things. Then I started noticing athletic deaths, sudden athletic deaths in Europe and the soccer fields, people collapsing at a frequency that I growing up never experienced. I'm 56. So, and then the mandates came. That's when I lost my mind. And I said, okay, I'm going to put my skills to work. And I'm going to, I came to some mandates I live on the island of Maui. And Dr. Malone came and I met him and I told him I'd monitor the financial results of insurance companies and funeral home companies because those are databases that you can't hide. Mm-hmm. Can't hide the body, right? And so then that started happening. And so I got a team of volunteers around me. I formed a firm with some PhD physicists. Josh Sterling, a former Wall Street executive, helped out for a period. And basically, this has just taken off. And I was approached in August of 2022 by Gavin DeBecker and Bobby Kennedy. They pitched me, and Tony Lyons. They pitched me this book. They said, you need to write this book. So I did. I wrote it without the who and the why, just the factual stuff. And I came up with the thesis that the vaccines were causing this excess death, disability, and injury. And, it's in the numbers. And I wrote it kind of like, we put some stories, we included local news stories of sudden athletic deaths, but it's written as if it's a Wall Street research piece with, a little personality flair thrown in there. And we QR code everything. You can fact check me. The book has been mostly ignored because it's not debunkable. It just is. It's just facts. Now they can argue with why my conclusion. My conclusion is it's the vaccines. But curiously enough, that's never discussed or talked about. They don't want to even mention that this is occurring currently. I mean, the numbers are a disaster to this day, and it's a problem. And I think it's a national security issue.
And then going back, when they go into Operation Warp Speed, whatever, the mRNA wasn't the only choice. Other countries picked other ways to go. There was no testing on it. So logically, why would you pick that one? So one would say a kickback, right? So why would you pick that one? And then we both know from Malone and McCullough and other guys like that their clinical trials, that's like me, you, and Rob come up with the vaccine, And Rob takes it, and this guy takes it, and this guy takes it. And if this guy dies, we brush it off. We all own the company. It's just an umbrella company. And now we submit our results. How does that go through where nobody sees it? Like, that's when I read your book, I wasn't aware of all the young deaths. That's what blew my mind. And nothing
Yeah.
you can't compare it to, as you state in your book, to anything historically that's ever happened. And the one great thing that you said, so anybody listening, watching, when you were growing up in high school, middle school, whenever did somebody just drop dead? Never.
Never.
Like
Never. And I don't know how old you are, but I'm 56. And
41.
Len Bias, when Len Bias dropped
Yeah.
dead, I mean, that was a big deal. And that was national news. Now it's happening all over the country, all over the globe. And whoa, no, we don't talk about it. It only appears in local internet newspapers. That's where it is. That's where the examples in our book are local stories. They never make national.
So why do you think they picked the mRNA? Why pick that one?
Well, so I'm going to rely on the work of others. I haven't done this work, so it's what I'm hearing. There's other people that have done work. And apparently, the DoD wanted to push this because they wanted to be battle ready for biological warfare. And the thinking is because it's mRNA and it's basically software coding, you can like roll out vaccines super quick. That was the logic. So I think the DoD was involved, and the FDA has obviously been captured for a long, long time. So it was kind of a comedy of momentum and errors. Was it a plan? I don't know. That needs investigation. But at this point, it doesn't matter. It's a cover up at this point. So who cares? It's a crime now. It's now a crime.
I bring that. I mean, I'm not red, purple, blue, but I just always had wondered. Was this to try to sabotage Trump? Like, hey, use the mRNA, and then hey, here's 900 billion for COVID relief, and then you can see that 300 billion of the 900 billion was fraudulently stolen. Is he involved in that, or was it just that he trusted the people around him, as you could see that they screwed him? How do you think that went?
There's lots of stories coming out, people writing books about this. From what I understand, he did rely on people, but ultimately the buck stops with the man. And what I'm disappointed is that he's still to this day endorsing the vaccine and claiming it saved 100 million lives. And I'm just mystified that he even can say that. But that, look, I'm not political. I'm not red, blue. I'm on team humanity now. This is all. I think we've all come to the conclusion the system's broken and something new's coming, and I hope to be part of that. I think people like you are part of that. But I think he was snookered, but the buck stops with the man who made the decision. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I hate the political thing either. It's just turned into a disaster. I'm like you. I wonder why the guy does a million press conferences. They're trying to put him in jail for a fluke, in my opinion, but never says anything like, hey, this is booster number 9,000. Look how many people have died. There was a report that had come out that estimates 26.6 million people. Actually, you wrote this. 26.6 million people were injured, 1.3 million disabled, excess of 300,000 deaths. I mean, that's just, and then you don't go against it. You got booster 17 coming up. Like, it's just unbelievable.
I don't know what's going on, but we put out that report a couple of weeks ago. It's called the Vaccine Damage Report. Again, I just want people to understand it's not just me, on the internet with an Excel spreadsheet. I formed a firm, Phinance Technologies. We have all our data on our website. It's PHINANC Two PhD physicists are my partners. We onboarded another physicist. We have 2 data scientists. We have 2 editors. This is not, Mickey Mouse operation here. This is the real stuff. And the numbers we found horrified us. And we err on the side of conservatism because we don't want to be bombastic. So our numbers are likely, unfortunately, low. But still, even with those numbers, it's like it represents 10% of the population of the U.S. If you want to impute that to the globe, it's about 900 million people injured. And an injury can be, minor or severe. But what we think is going on is it's compromised people's immune systems. And that's showing up in the work time data that we discovered at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Absence and work time data went off the charts statistically, especially in 22, which is curious. COVID's long gone in 22, and it just exploded. And what we think is going on is that people are chronically getting ill. Anecdotally, that's what we're all hearing from people. It's like, oh, so-and-so's sick all the time. So we need to stop the vaccination program today. If I was in charge, stop it today, alert the nation that this has happened, that you maybe have a compromised immune system, and there are ways to get, to fix that. But the problem is no one knows that, so they're going to the doctor for shingles, they're going to the doctor for this, so they get the pill for that without addressing the root cause of the problem, which is the spike protein.
Pull up, let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice, either a great night or a great next day. That is until I found Z-Biotics. We all have busy lives these days and can't afford to waste a day stuck on the couch because of a few drinks the night before. Z-Biotics is the answer we've all been looking for. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic is the first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut, where you need it most. Just remember to drink Z-Biotics before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's of sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Order Z-Biotics now for your summertime barbecue, weddings, vacations, you name it. Go to zbiotics.com/MSCSmedia or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use MSCS Media checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code, so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're ever unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/MSCSmedia. Use the code MSCSmedia at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode. This episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked. Are you the man your father was? Recent studies have shown that men's testosterone levels have dropped substantially since the 1980s at about an average of 1% per year. Think about how old your father was when he was born. For example, if he was 30, your testosterone levels could be 30% lower than his. Low testosterone levels can have all types of health effects on men. It can affect your mood, sex drive, memory, muscle mass loss, you name it. And yes, low testosterone is more common the older you get, but it can affect men at any age. So let's talk about today's sponsor, Let's Get Checked. You can order a testing kit that will be delivered to you in a discreet packaging with next-day delivery. Once your sample arrives in the laboratory, confidential results will be available from your secure online account within 2 to 5 days. So, if you want to test your hormone levels without having to leave your home, visit trylgc.com/MSCSmedia and get 25% off your test using the code MSCSmedia. The link is in the description at the top. Tab 2. Like in your book, just the ones you have on the front cover. If it was anything else, this would, all of them, just to cover your book, would be on every single news station on the planet. But because it's related to this, you don't hear about it. You're talking about young kids, 18, 13, 12. When you started doing your studies, and like you said, you go by trends. What are some trends that you saw that led you to some conclusions pretty quick?
Well, so anecdotally, we knew about the sudden athletic deaths. And I didn't have, later on when I wrote the book, we found a study. But what we first saw was the insurance actuarial group life results. And okay, so what is a group life policy? It's a policy you get, it's there's whole life in group life. Group life is given to Fortune 500 companies and mid-sized companies, and you get it as a benefit when you sign on board to the company. You get your healthcare plan, you pick your PPO or your HMO, you sign that form, then you sign the group life, death, and disability. And it's a joke. I've signed it many times myself. It's a joke because you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. You're not thinking of death. You're pretty healthy, and to get the policy paid, you have to be on the job. You can't have quit or been fired or retired. So the other thing is that it's not a big dollar amount. It depends on your base. It's 1 or 2 times your base salary. So it's kind of like if you die, your wife gets some money to get her by for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But what really alarmed me was the age group known as the millennials, 25 through 44. Okay, millennials don't die suddenly; they don't drop dead, and their excess mortality in June of 2021 was 30%, still atrocious. But then mysteriously, it rose to 84%, and this is in my book, in a 3-month period, August, September, October. What happened during that period? Well, it was called mandates. And, and so what, in Wall Street, that's what you call a rate of change, a slope, second derivative, third derivative. It just went up. I call that an event. And the naysayers tell me, well, Ed, there was a bunch of people who committed suicide. Oh, so Fortune 500 and people with good jobs had a suicide pact in the third quarter. No, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, but Ed, they died of fentanyl and heroin overdoses. Oh, okay, yeah, those are up. But when you're employed, you tend not to keep your job long when you're on heroin. I find that to be the case. So there wasn't a mass overdosing event in the third quarter. And then the final one was missed cancer screening appointments. All right, 25 through 44. I'm 56. I've yet to have a cancer screening appointment. So that's just nonsense. So something's going on. And then the disability data, same story. So the group life policyholders in 2021 as a group, 25 through 64, saw 40% excess mortality. 40%.
40%.
40.
Between quarter 3 and 4, right? Just between quarter 3 and 4.
All of 21.
All of 21.
Yeah, it was super high for the millennials. It hit 84% for the millennials. So over the whole year, 40%. And this is what's interesting. CEO Scott Davison of One America said at his Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he didn't know what he was saying because he still doesn't blame the vaccine, but he said 10% increase in deaths in this age group is a once in a 200-year flood. His words. 40% is off the charts. So this is just in the world of insurance actuarial thinking. This is just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. They blame COVID, and they're trying to blame long COVID. That they all mandated all their employees to get this stuff, and they're going through the motions of cognitive dissonance at the moment. But there's progress there. So they did a study in 2016. To prove what they already knew, that this is a great business. These people don't die because they're the healthiest amongst us. They get access to the best health care. They're the most educated, yada, yada, yada. In the study, it showed that in any given year, pre-COVID, this group of people, group life policyholders, died at 1/3 the mortality rate of the whole population in any given year. They were 40%, as I just said. The general U.S. population was only 32%, so that flipped.
Wow.
What's the difference? The difference is the general U.S. population had a choice to be vaccinated or not. In general, right. the total numbers. These folks didn't, and so we've never seen this before. So the healthiest amongst us are dying faster than the rest of us in the general population. Then we looked at U.S. disability data, different database, U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. They do disability questionnaires and they report monthly the numbers. It was running around 29 to 30 million for the prior 4 or 5 years. Starting around February of 2021, it took off and shot up to 33.2 million by September of 2022. It's come off a little bit, but it's almost near its high. So the rate of change is slow, but it's not off its highs, which it should be, but it's not. We delved into the numbers, and the employed were 1.7 million of that additional 3.2 million, so more than half. Were employed who got disabled. The disability rate for employed went up 31%.
Wow.
Disability rate for employed women went up 39%, and employed men 19%. So this is affecting women more than men, unfortunately. And then the general U.S. population disability rate only went up 9%. Now, here's the clincher: the not in labor force. These are the people that could work, who are willing to work, but choose not to for whatever reason. So they're out of the labor force temporarily. These we suspect are the people who got fired for not taking the vax, or quit because they refused to take the vax. Their disability rate was only up 4% during this time frame.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that curious? So I've come to the conclusion it's been detrimental to your health to be employed in 2021. And I said to Senator Ron Johnson, if it's not the vaccine, what is it, and why aren't we talking about it? And he's like, good question.
And, allegedly, whatever happened, just to make a point, we had on Dr. Kirk Moore. The guy's a plastic surgeon. So patients would go into him, allegedly, and the parents would say to a 10-year-old, they would say, Dr. Moore, hey, can you give me a vaccine card? Because my kid can't go to school if he doesn't have a vaccine card. Whatever he did, I don't know. He was a great guy, a nice guy. But just the fact that was taking place where parents were like, look, this doesn't seem like a good idea. My son's 10. They can't go into private school or whichever school they were in without this vaccine card with the mandate. So and then they indict the guy. So maybe whatever they're alleging that, he took $50 and he gave it to charity, whatever. But you're mandating that place for kids to get it. And whether he did or didn't, I'm with the guy. I mean, it's insane. The kid's 10, 9,
well,
8.
Well, look, let's deconstruct what he did.
Yeah.
He saved lives. We now know he saved lives.
Thank you.
And that's I don't know the specifics, but good for him. He saved lives.
That's what I said too. I said I don't care about this, that, the other. I said whether because he couldn't talk a lot. Whatever you did or you didn't do, you saved a lot of people. And when Malone was sitting here, in my words, not his words, because I can't talk like him, he said basically in so many words, if you took that vaccine, and this was maybe a year ago when he was in, he said you're going to see people fall over and die, and they're going to say heart attack, stroke, this, that. No, it's not a heart attack. It's not stroke. It's not seizure. It's from the vaccine. And we're seeing it all the time. And even the football player, what was his name again?
Damar
Hamlin. Now, he's in perfect shape. He gets hit in the chest. How many times like that in a game? And he took the vaccine, which they covered that up pretty good. And he just drops over. And then the soccer players, like you mentioned, just unbelievable. Now, they're also pushing it on pregnant women. Why in the world would they do, what's the agenda behind, what do you think is the agenda behind all of it?
Well, let's go back to some history. Pre-COVID vaccines, doctors would regularly say, don't take any vaccines when you're pregnant. It was like a no-no. It was a known no-no. And so when the CDC early on said they recommended it for pregnant women, I was like, lost my mind. I was like, what is So look, I don't care at this point. What's the agenda? The agenda is either stupidity or murder. Doesn't matter at this point because it's, incompetence is no excuse. So jail time for these morons is my opinion. I mean, this is a common practice. You ask anybody in the medical profession if they would vaccinate pregnant women, they would say no until COVID came. And then all of a sudden, there was this groupthink weirdness that went on that, we're going to suspend logic and critical thinking for this magic juice.
Now, as you said, like we have your book up. It's a great book. You can get it on Kindle. It's all facts, math backed. As you said, you worked with the best of the best. When you're going through all this and you're seeing this, how do you see this relating fully to Big Pharma, completely to Big Pharma in a big extent where they're pushing it? They're paying the TV stations, whether it's Fox, CNBC, CNN, if they're still alive, whoever. They're the ones with the 2-minute commercials paying the bills. Do you think they're all in cahoots? Even the Foxes, if you're a Fox fan, even whoever fan, do you think they're all in cahoots where, the big guy walks in and says, look, you got to direct it this way?
Three things, actually. So there was mass hysteria and fear from the propaganda. So a lot of people bought into this hook, line, and sinker. Then your biggest advertisers are the pharma companies, so that's a big problem, especially on the nightly news. I've heard nightly news programs up to 75% of their revenues come from big pharma. Not all of TV, but just nightly news. Then you had, and it came out in FOIA requests, the Biden administration giving $1 billion to suppress the other narrative and promote vaccines. So you have a conspiracy of interests. I call this, people say, was it a plan? I go, maybe, but we don't even need to go there. You had tech companies in bed with the government coming out in the Twitter files to suppress any counter narrative to the vaccine, because they said, sure, we'll do that for you, because they were licking their chops for surveillance technologies, because the plan was to have quarterly boosters and surveillance until we died, jabbing up every 4 months. Thank God that didn't happen, but that was the plan. So that's what they were in for. Then you have the media companies, already slaves to big pharma, getting another kicker from the government. All the while, everybody's under mass hysteria buying this nonsense. Then you have the government folks who are just pure on power. I mean, they're just maniacal power. Anytime they can extend their power, they're down. And there's probably kickbacks going on into PACs. I'm sure there's some illegal monies being, given to these guys. Then you have the pharmaceutical industry. They're like, hey, we get to sell a product mandated under the color of law. Sign me up. And we'll test it for a few weeks, because you got to understand, the FDA didn't get corrupted overnight. This has been happening unbeknownst to us for a long time. 75% of their budget comes from pharmaceutical fees. So 75% of their budget is from pharma. So, and there's a revolving door. We all know about it. So the way they did business, this is how they've been doing business. And the reason we didn't see it is because they probably approved some shady drugs that we don't know about with some crappy clinical trial data. They got them through, and it was such a small amount of the population, no one ever figured it out. They figured out Vioxx. You remember Vioxx was the one that, So this has been going on. They've been approving crappy drugs for a long time. But this one was jump the shark time, because the numbers are so big. A Wall Street guy like me can scrape government databases and show insanity. I mean, that's how big this one is. So they jumped the shark.
So do you think it was basically, we're saying, just rushed? If it was given time, would it make any difference? Like, this whole thing was just pushed out in this warp speed. But if time was given, maybe they would have come up with another solution, or not even a vaccine, something else to cure everything.
Well, there were early treatments available in 2020. That's the first part of the crime. I didn't even talk about that. The suppression of early treatment was done because to get the vaccine, you couldn't have competing therapies that existed on the market. You can only get an EUA, emergency use authorization, if there is nothing else. So that's why they demonized hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Here's my ivermectin. I take it every day. It's not horse safe.
I have it too. I have it all down, and I have monoclonal antibodies. Before they suddenly went from 10 million doses to, in a week, all of a sudden there's no monoclonal antibodies and there's no ivermectin, which has been generic for 50 years.
Yeah, you can't make this up, this absurdity. So the crime wave number one was suppression of early treatment, killed a lot of people. And also remdesivir, which is basically, you go on that, there's a 40% chance of kidney failure and death. I mean, I don't even know why that's even being administered, but, there's so many things going on. It's like, I just feel like we're living in loony land. But so that was phase one. My opinion on the mRNA technology was, it had never been proven in the clinical trials with the animals. All the animals died. The thing to remember about Moderna, the number 2 vaccine provider of this nonsense, never had a product that actually produced revenues. It was one of those, perpetual, we called them in on Wall Street like serial capital raisers. Always, they just and they would trade on optionality and clinical trial results. It was like a hedge fund stock, and apparently the CEO was a psychopathic psychological liar. Just complete liar. And so all of a sudden I don't know what, given enough time, I don't think this was even close to being ready. Never.
When I had Del Bigtree in, he had a graph, and it was Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, and it was updated by the second of how many times it was getting billed to insurance. And Moderna at this time was just banging it. Remember, he was in here for 2-3 hours. It went from, red to redder to redder. I mean, when you would think it would be Pfizer at the time, but it was Moderna just pushing and pushing to death the crooks. Now, I had read in 86, right, they had passed a law that you can't sue or indict a pharmaceutical company over a vaccine. Is there any way that could happen now, or that still stands?
Well, if fraud can be proven, that vitiates all contracts. But I also think, if we get enough of the country to become aware of the fact that this happened and they've been poisoned, and this becomes kind of talked about often, and even judges who took the vaccine, there'll come a time somewhere in some courtroom where a judge will rule you violated the spirit of immunity, and just create new law. And I think, laws are there to protect people, not to be abused with little loopholes. And what really disgusted me was we already knew the vaccine was dropping people like flies, and they pushed anyways to put it on the childhood vaccination schedule. The reason they did that was that's how you get the immunity. You couldn't get the immunity until it was on the childhood vaccination schedule.
Wow. I didn't know that.
That's how evil these people are.
Well,
wow. That's sinister shit there.
Is there a way, I have friends that, got their kids got the vaccine, and they're regretting that decision now, of course. And blame themselves and worry about and wonder about it. Is there going to be or do you think in the future I hate to say another vaccine, but something to get rid of that one that's in their system that may cause anything, or what?
Yeah. So look, the human body is a wonderful thing. Our numbers suggest 10% of the vaccinated population have either been injured, died, or disabled. So that's bad. But the good news is 90% are rolling along. But I'm a divorced dad. I couldn't convince my ex-wife not to take it, or my kids, but they're done now. But they took the initial, and so I worry about it too. There's some websites, FLCCC, Frontline Doctors, COVID Critical Care. They have a lot of solutions how to detox. Judy Mikovits is looking into detox. There's a lot of detox solutions. One of the things my ex-wife is Japanese. My kids are half Japanese. One thing that Peter McCullough has talked about is I forget how to pronounce the actual chemical, but it's found in natto. Natto is fermented soybeans. So I told my kids, start eating your natto again. So I got my daughter, eating a spoonful a day. I got my son looking into it. He's at UCLA. So there are things you can do. And look, fasting, like not eating for a couple days, will eat any malformed the spike protein shouldn't be there. So if you fast, your own body will kill it. So there's a lot of things you can do, and a lot of hope. So I don't want people, if your child hasn't had any problems and you've made the mistake of doing it, don't freak out. But start looking into ways to increase general health anyways, to detoxify it, because I do believe the human body is wonderful and can get rid of it.
And by the way, the book goes through all this. It's on Amazon. Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Deaths, 21 and 22. It's just a great book, great and sad book to read, and how evil these people are. If you could elaborate more, and I think this will really hit people better coming from you, not the peanut like me. Excessive mortality. When people are just dropping like flies, and you have the facts, and the facts are the facts, and the math are the math. What are some of the most stunning things in your research you've seen? I mean, all of it's stunning, but just some of the craziest stuff.
The craziest thing for me was what happened to the millennials in the third quarter of 2021. That was the event, and that's the smoking gun. We got you. There's no other explanation, especially in group life policyholders. From March of 2021 to February of 22, 60,000 millennials died excessively. 60,000. Let's put that into perspective. The Vietnam War took 58,000 American soldiers' lives over 12 years. We did this in 1 year. And then the disabled will multiply, then the injured. So each one is bigger than the other one. And the other thing that really disturbed me was when we recently figured out the injury data, and that disturbs me because the injuries, I think, are suppressed immune systems, chronically sick. And these buckets aren't static. So if you're injured, you can move into disabled and then dead. Because if your immune system's chronically, it's AIDS. It's basically vaccine-acquired immune deficiency syndrome. You have VAIDS. And, you may not die quickly, but you're going to have a horrible life until you fix that problem. So that's what shocked me. And I got depressed, actually, a couple of weeks ago when we put this information out, 26.6 million people. And that's affecting... if you're looking at what's going on in the economy, this is, that's what my day job is. I'm a Wall Street guy. It's affecting the economy and the productivity of it. We got labor problems all over the place. Why? Because we just took out 26 million, well, we include the deaths, and 28.9 million people that were employed. So you got 26.6 of them are like working at half speed. You got 1.36 million disabled and 300,000 dead. So you can see why there's help wanted signs and why nothing's getting done fast anywhere.
And that's, like you said, and that might be shooting low. And have we ever seen anything in all the history we know? Has there ever been anything like this?
No. I think this is the biggest crime fraud we've ever seen in humanity. I think we're not going to talk about this for the next 10 years. This will be talked about for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
This is, look, I try not to live in this world where this is a reality because we have to live our lives. But, part of what makes me happy is I'm able to deliver this message and get it out to as many people as possible. But it's stark. I mean, it's going to take down a lot of institutions once this comes to light, and people are going to get mad, and not those of us that have clued into this. It's going to be those who were the most fervent acolytes. I call them the COVIDians, the ones who this has become a religion. Once they realize they've been betrayed, those are the people I worry about going violent and losing their minds.
And then when you see, I forget who we had in. He was, it was actually a Wall Street crime. It was, a true crime thing guy that I had in mortgage fraud. It was actually pretty funny. But when he was in prison, they were offering every prisoner $55 to take the vaccine. So if you came from the street and you're in the county, right? Whatever you did, you don't have any money, who knows, Hey, if you go take this vaccine, we'll give you $55 on your books to order food and everything else. Now, how insane is that in 2023?
That kind of... The whole incentive, first of all these incentives violate the Nuremberg Code, straight up. You're not supposed to do that. The fact that this was pushed so hard made me very suspicious. I mean, the crazy blitz from the celebrities, the influencers, the late night show people with the dancing needles. You show your Vax card at Krispy Kreme, you get a free donut every day for a year.
Yeah.
I literally on Twitter, I'm always on Twitter looking at stuff. There was a young woman who was not thin, let's just put it that way, holding up her Krispy Kreme donut and showing her Vax card. And I just said, this is the world we live in. This is insanity.
This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Let's talk about sex. Guys, remember the days when you're always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up, BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever the opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part? It's all done online. So no visits to the doctor's office, awkward conversations, waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. Does it work? Don't think you need it? Try it free for a month and see. You're going to love it. You could be missing the best sex of your life. They say there's nothing sexier than confidence, and Blue Chew can help give you the confidence where it counts. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at bluechew.com. Chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use the promo code MSCS at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code MSCS to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. We thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shave your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using code MSCS Media for 20% off and free shipping. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to all the stubble trouble with Manscaped's Pro Beard Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a monster at fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. No more messing around in drawers, this color one, that color one, all with one guard. Plus, it's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower and avoid all that hair in the sink. The Pro Kit doesn't end there, though. First, there's the beard shampoo and conditioner. You need to remember your hair is different. Next, Manscaped's beard oil. Cap it off with beard balm. The Pro Kit also comes with 3 different gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code MSCS Media at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code MSCS Media. And then you do the book. Now you have the math, the facts, you put it together, and then you continuously see boosters. And they're still pushing the boosters. Maybe not as prevalent as they were, but still pushing boosters. What goes through your mind as a Wall Street guy, trend guy, math guy? You see the death toll. You know, Peter was in here before saying it. I mean, the top guys in the planet are saying it. And as you know, more than me, Dr. Malone does not come and sit across from Tommy for his health. You know, guys like him stay in a lab and they work. Peter's the best cardiologist in the planet. He likes me, but he's not coming here for his health. You know what I mean? You know, he likes me because we were paper boys. But, you know, when a guy like that comes out on a podcast, you know that there's something seriously wrong. And yet, even though these guys with backgrounds that are unbelievable, Dr. Epstein too, not the weird one, you know, and they're saying, no, Dr. Robert Epstein, really good guy. They tried to kill him too. You know, we have a list here of how many. Whenever somebody comes in and I offer them a bottle of water, if they don't want the water, I say, they must have tried to kill him. Yeah. You know, it's crazy. Just overtelling the truth factually. But when you see the boosters, I mean, how does someone like you that sees the raw data feel?
So 2 things. The good news is the booster uptake is abysmal. So the word of mouth's getting around. And, you know, anybody with a brain in their head would not take a product that doesn't work because it was sold originally safe and effective in that it prevented you from getting COVID and transmitting it. Both those are lies. Now people are hearing it's not fake. So booster uptake's down. But you're right. They're pushing it. It's all over the ads on advertisements on the radio here in Maui to go, you know, inject your children with this stuff and make sure you get it every 6 months. And the Biden administration just spent another $6 billion on these things. I think I've been on Wall Street. I've seen fraud. So this fraud is the fraud I'm seeing in the government and the regulatory agencies is no different than what I'm seeing in corporate fraud. Enron pretended everything was fine until they were put in handcuffs. So what I mean by that is, I used to talk to a lot of CEOs, but when a company started to become a little on the hinky side.
Yeah.
I stopped talking to the CEO because I knew they're going to lie to me, and I didn't want them to bend, so I just look at the numbers. I had friends caught up in Enron, and Enron was clearly unraveling pretty fast, and people were buying it all the way down. And I would say to smart friends of mine, "Why are you buying it?" Well, I talked to the CEO. CEO said everything's fine, and this is all lies. And I said, "What? You're going to actually trust?" I mean, we've seen fraud after fraud. So then the guy ended up in cuffs. The guy bought Enron to zero, lost his job, but this time it's your life. So, I think this is classic fraudulent behavior. They're going to fake it till they make it and hope it goes away. They're going to pretend as if what I'm saying is garbage. They're going to this is classic fraudulent behavior, psychopathic behavior. Saw it all the time on Wall Street. Until the handcuffs come, everything's fine.
Yeah, like we've had a lot of Wall Street people in it, and just like you said, you see Tom Brady, and like, let's just take this is to me, and we agree, this is no different than the whole Bitcoin thing. You see Tom Brady bought it. Okay, that must be good. You see this guy buy it. Oh, it must be good. But, behind closed doors, it's a mess. But they're paying Brady whatever. He doesn't know. Okay, you'll give me $1 million for a commercial. I'll do it. So Tommy and Rob, which I'm not an idiot. No offense to anybody who likes it. But if I can't see it, I'm not buying Bitcoin. Oh, Brady does it. Boom, I'll do it. And then bang, you get destroyed. But they'll play along like this is the, what was the guy's
FTX.
name? Friedman or whatever.
Yeah, Friedman.
He's prancing around like everything's fine and dandy and ducking and dodging until he couldn't duck and dodge anymore. And what you're saying is with this, eventually, as the death toll goes up and things shift, when they're in handcuffs, they're going to be like, well, it was this person in that one and this one and that one.
Yeah, the blame game is going to begin, and they're going to start. I suspect we're going to see people thrown under the bus in the next 6 months. The institutions will start sacrificing somebody to give the public the appearance that justice is being done. But we're not going to just like take a couple bodies. There's a lot of people that we need forensic investigations, discovery, email discovery. I want everything. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm just counting bodies. But that's what I'd like to see.
As an Italian, how about we use the RICO on them?
Absolutely.
Really?
Fact, to be honest with you, I put a tweet out before the vaccine in 2020 saying that what went on with the shutdown of the economy was a RICO violation because all the big box stores were allowed to stay open and all
strip
the small
clubs.
Yeah. Everybody got closed, but this was protected. That's RICO. I mean, the Amazon profits exploded because all these small businesses went out of business. So that's there's RICO. There's RICO everywhere. Let's not use it against the mob anymore.
Good. Finally.
The mafia pales in comparison to what's going on today.
Yeah, what was happening in Philly when I was living there, that's peanuts compared to this. Come on, let's get somebody else with that RICO. Every other week I look over, I'm like, oh shit, here he goes. This is RICO. Like, you're not just taking him on, he's in the pond, whatever. He took a bad bet. You know what I mean? Some money here or there. This is, worldwide and nuts. What were you going to say, Rob?
Do you think, though, as people have gotten smarter or been more in tune with it, that they'll try to find another way? And the other way, I mean, is I've heard and we've talked about it where, they're saying they have to inject the cows and then the chickens with the vaccine. So do you think as we become smarter, they're going to be like, well, shit, now we have to put it in the food supply, and now you're going to get it in your food supply anyway?
Yeah, look, that is something that bothers me. And if that's truly, if they do that, then it goes to show they just don't care. I mean, they're openly trying to poison people. So, has that been 100% verified yet? I know that there's been a lot of talk about it.
What has been verified is we had Jovan Polzer in. He invented the QR code, and then now he's into expert election, and he was building a thing for cancer cells, which they kept blocking him. Long story short, the proof he has is, was it Seattle? One of these states, there was a chicken plant, and they all got the flu, just the flu. And it was mandated that every chicken plant in, I think it was Seattle,
Yeah, I think it's
got shot with the vaccine 50 million, I believe, 50 million chickens at that time
remember.
got shot with the COVID vaccine because they got the flu. And that's factual. That's not somebody saying that. Now, that's only one spot, but if you're doing it at one spot, Mr. Dowd, as you know, one spot turns to 51, 52 to fucking 50 million very quickly. And then
all we need is another one, and it's 2.
And then we had out here in Florida, there's a place called Okeechobee Steakhouse. Been around for 90 years. And the guy's a good guy, you know, traditional. He can't even get fish. He had to close his fish place. Every celebrity's been there. Leno, Jamie Fun, you name it. Do you know why he can't get fish? Because what had happened was China bought Smith Brothers. China bought this company. And what they do is they take the fish. This sounds nuts. Pork, fish, and the fish. That's why and meat too. Meat too. And they send it to China. China puts whatever in it, clones it, and now you get back 3 for 1. So now Smith Brothers, who was around forever, is no longer Smith Brothers. They're with China. The fish, the same. I'm in Florida, and the guy couldn't get fish to the point where he had to close it. Not because of business, because he couldn't get real fish like you would at a butcher.
Wow.
You know? So that's another concern that they try to kill us through the food. And that's just, they're trying to kill us.
People ask me, is this a depopulation plan? I can't prove that, but the numbers that we're currently seeing are a de facto depopulation plan. If they don't stop and reverse and get back to normal, depopulation is going on as we speak. That's just a fact.
Yeah. And Peter had some pretty good evidence of, and he won't mind, Bill Gates and his depopulation program, among some other guys. Back to your book, that was really, I wanted to ask you. So when you started seeing these younger people pass, they would get the vaccine, and how long would it be? They would just drop over, and what would they label it? What would they mark it as?
So that's interesting. So we haven't done research into that because that requires more granularity. But my friend Josh Sterling did some looking at it, and there's an ICD code. This is the code you put in for cause of death or whatever.
Yeah.
Cause unknown took off. So, and same with the actuarial data. Unknown cause took off too.
Wow.
Unknown, because they just couldn't figure it out.
Oh, really?
Then what happened? The CD. I don't have proof, but I'm gonna speculate. This is speculation. You can see the ICD codes come in unknown, and they spike up for like a 6-week period. Then they reclassify them. I don't prove as something else. So the unknown category at the CDC just kind of gets. It's called reclassification fraud. WorldCom did that with CapEx.
Yeah.
You know. So I know what fraud looks like. They reclassify. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So we have no proof. We suspect the CDC is playing games with codes, but they can't hide the bodies, and that's what that's why we focus on the ones and zeros. You can't hide the death. You can make up all sorts of it was COVID, it was unvaxxed. You know, once we get down to that granularity, we think there's fraud. So we're just counting dead, disabled, and injured, and we figure we have enough evidence to prove our case.
Were you able to break it down by the states, like with the younger people especially? Like this state had this many or this percentage and so on? You aren't?
We didn't do that because not only have we done the U.S., we did all of UK, all of Europe, Germany, Australia. Same story everywhere.
Really?
It's like mixture from old to young. It's everywhere.
So in these other countries, the statistics were pretty much the same.
It depends. There were some variations, but generally speaking, the same. Denmark was the worst.
Wow.
Denmark's excess death was this much in. I'm just using an example. This much in 2020, then it grew in 2021, and then it went off the charts in 20. So every year it got worse. They just suspended their vaccine program for under 50 when I was writing the book. So they're pulling what we call a Homer Simpson rut-row and kind of, edging into the hedgerow to disappear. They said that it's better to get COVID than the vaccine, essentially.
Right.
I don't know if you saw this, but Switzerland just ended the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Switzerland, the whole thing. And then they said any doctor who gives it is open to lawsuits and
Lose their
malpractice.
license, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never got the shot, and I'm in Florida, so we didn't have much of a lockdown. When I could, I'd have people flying. I never wore the mask. I never used gloves. If I got it, I didn't notice it. Maybe I got a sore throat for a day or two, but as far as I know, I didn't get it. And if I did, Peter made sure that I had a nice cocktail of list of what to take. Rob's been here. We've sat with these guys that would call us a week later and be like, hey, I just wanted to let you know I got COVID, and I never got it. So as far as I know, and I think you would agree, it's nothing more than just a flu. And
well, it's now a cold. It's a common cold. It's
common
it's
cold.
now, yeah, it's not that. Look, I got COVID finally in July of 2022 because I was at a 4th of July party with a bunch of vaccinated people. I got it. It presented. I threw the kitchen sink at it. I had a sore throat. And that was it. All my vaccinated friends were like not doing well. One vaccinated kid heard that I was doing some special secret protocol, and I, gave him some ivermectin. He was fine, and he was vaccinated, but he got through it like that because I gave him some ivermectin.
You go to a vaccinated party, you get COVID.
Pretty much.
Do you have the numbers? Are there numbers out there that show the cremation numbers went up over the past, say, 3 years compared to before? Because I just wonder about that. I know a lot more people that I know that their families never cremated. They got buried. Not that they were forced, but they were kind of swayed to cremate. And I wonder why, because once you get rid of the body, there's nothing left. Have you heard anything about that? Is that just speculation?
I don't know. So we were monitoring funeral home results before I started getting the team assembled because that was easy to do. I'd listen in on their quarterly conference calls. They were in the Wall Street parlance, we call it beat and raise. They would beat expectation, then raise their estimates. So you're like, we're coming to the end of we're coming into the first quarter of 2022, and they're like, yeah, we thought that the COVID it would be going down because of the vaccine and we'd be going back to normal, but we have to raise, we're seeing non-COVID deaths now. And it's like, isn't that curious? They're literally growth stocks. They've been some of the best. The stock market hasn't done well the last year and a half. They've been some of the best stocks in the stock market. The public funeral home companies.
This has to be nuts for you because you thought, hey, I'm taking a break from the stock market to dig into this, and this is nothing more than the Wall Street
up here.
stock market, fraud and just breaking it into it like you would anything else when you were in the market, or when
that's why I'm qualified to do this because that's I can see BS all over the place, and now and so with the death trends and the disability trends, pretend they're stocks. Excess death went like this, disability went like this. It was like well above 3 standard deviation events, which is called a trend change. So imagine I'm a growth stock investor. If disability was a growth stock, it broke out in 2021, I'd buy it, and then I'd be adding to the stock as my thesis gets better and better. Same with deaths. If these were stocks, I'd be long, and there'd be big positions in my portfolio, which means that people who are skeptical of what I've done, that's the kind of conviction I have. These would be big positions in my portfolio. This is how convicted I am of what I've discovered. It's like a stock. It's trends. This is not rocket science.
Yeah, I want to note again with your book that it's a very easy read and it's not political. There's nothing in that book political. So I want to make that point very. It's just facts, numbers, and here's what never historically has happened. This is a 40% increase. This is that. There's no Democrat, Republican bullshit in there at all. It is just straight facts from a guy who managed $14 billion, sir. So that right there alone makes me want to read it. Now, when we see all this, now, how do you see a relation between, because again, this is a trend. You have this problem, the next problem. Now you get into the trans thing. where, okay, they're doing the vaccines to 10-year-olds. Now they want to do body parts to the kids. Then, the UFOs are coming to kill everybody. How do you see a correlation, a connection between all of that?
Yeah, no. So I've
and I forgot racism. How could I forget racism? Everything's racist.
Well, look, one of the reasons I was very suspicious of COVID was something I saw on April 5th of 2020 on Face the Nation on one of those Sunday shows. It was a mere week or two after the lockdown. James Bullard, Federal Reserve president, gets on TV and they say, how are we going to reopen the economy with everyone so scared and people worried about COVID? He said, oh, there's good news. We have new surveillance technologies and new technologies where we can test every day and we'll issue immunity badges.
Oh, boy.
And that's when I said, oh, okay. Because, those of us on Wall Street have been looking for the end of we call this the everything bubble. It's been going on for 12 years. We're looking for it to end. We all thought that maybe, it's going to end. It's unavoidable. Maybe they'll gin up a war to, cover it up. Oh, let's use COVID. So COVID is literally, I think, a control system to point everywhere else but the central bankers and the politicians. I think it's all related. All these issues, all this madness is to have people looking all over the place while they implode the system and introduce a central bank digital currency. I think that's the end game. And I'm on record saying it's my opinion and speculation. That's why in the book I'm very careful. I just present the facts, ma'am. But I have opinions. Yeah. My opinions are COVID helped reinflate because the global economy was rolling over in 2019. There was evidence of that. COVID gave them an excuse to print crazy amounts of money and spend deficits out. And now, unfortunately, that's coming home to roost. And we're in the middle of a collapse, I think. So this is all, COVID was a control system and it didn't quite work as well as intended. And whether they would have been better off giving a vaccine that was saline solution, quite honestly, and just get people to comply. But they didn't. So this is where we are.
Yeah, just give saline, give every doctor $3,000 every time they get it to code it. Nobody dies, and have your control and scare to death everybody else. But instead, you have this. Then you do have the Ukraine war, which that's a whole nother story. When you see, the AI, people talk about that, which may have some type of correlation with that. Elon came up with the Chat GP4. Then Bill Gates comes in and buys it, who he can then, over time, suppress this, tell you what you want to hear. Do you see where I'm getting at? So with a guy like Gates running that, in my opinion, or owning it, if he decides, well, he wants the country to think that booster number 972 is good, with that Chat GP4 getting better, he could easily take over all of social media, all of searches to brainwash just like they are right now.
Well, let me tell you something about, so we're working on a bunch of interesting projects and I talked to my partner, Carlos, the brilliant PhD physicist, and they're working, Yuri, my other partner, is one of the premier people on AI in Portugal. So what is AI? AI is it as spectacular as we've been led to believe? I think there's a lot of hype. It's a language system at the moment that can just print documents at the speed of light, but it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you tell it lies, it will spit out lies. So this is, we think this is going to be used to create. Right now, we have journalists with talking points. They're going to create AI journalists that feed their narratives at the lightest speed. So you're going to see propaganda. This gives the propagandists an immense tool.
Power.
So power, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to create an anecdote to that once we get up and running with our firm. And one of the projects is we're going to scan news stories for certain types of language that would suggest that it's been created with lies. So yeah, we're going to try to create the antidote.
Oh, they're going to hate you.
No, I'm probably. Some people joke. I was on Larry Elder's program. He said I need a good food taster,
or a big security team. One of the two. Now you also have Phinance Technologies. Man, I was going through that. Pull up tab 4. Congratulations on that. That is detailed. Some of the best of the best. Can you elaborate on that and what you're doing with that? And I mean, because just off the top of my head, because I kept reading through it, basically what you're doing, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're getting real research, real data, so that somebody can take that knowledge, look at the risk and reward factors, and then make a more proper decision in what they're embedding on or and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, so we have two parts of we have Phinance Technologies, the hedge fund, which we're in the process of raising capital. Then we have the Humanity Project. And Humanity Project is free to the world. We're trying to be, I mean, it's a big project. We're going to be the watchdog of the watchdogs because they don't apparently have our best interests at heart.
You think so?
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a lot of volunteers that are doing that. It's great. We put the hedge fund on the side for now because we wanted to get this information. We culminated with the vaccine damage report. We're going to update all the info and keep updating, but we've done all the work. We've proven the case. The next phase is to raise capital for our hedge fund, which is using economic cycle indicators, fundamental economic indicators with a quant overlay. And once we raise that capital, we've all committed as partners to not do what normal hedge fund managers do, which is buy a bunch of stuff. We're going to pour a bunch of our profits back into projects like the Humanity Project, the AI Project, Children's Health Defense, crypto projects, because we feel that if the CBDC comes, alternative systems, so we're going to work on that. So we're just trying to build breakaway systems.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I forgot to ask you when you mentioned, I want to get back and ask you about a couple of these projects because these are cool. How far away do you think the digital currency is? And I don't mean Bitcoin, as you know.
Yeah. Oh, I think so. There's an executive order. There's the Fed Now program. So they're trying to push it this year. But ultimately, if I was an evil Bond villain, let's say,
Bond.
I'm gonna put on my evil Bond villain.
Bond. James Bond.
Let's say I'm Spectre. What would Spectre do?
Yes. All right, Spectre. For the next 2 minutes, Spectre, what do you think?
Spectre would collapse the economy, have everybody in fear, maybe throw in a war on top, maybe another virus, have everybody freaking out, and then introduce the CBDC and at the maximum point of fear. I think it's 2 to 3 years away.
Spectre, well,
or the attempt. The attempt. Yeah.
Spectre, that's exactly what it seems like is going on right now, Spectre. I mean verbatim.
Well, can I also add?
Sure.
People say, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory talk." Well, Warren Buffett just sold all of his Taiwan semiconductor stock, and he said, "I'm worried about war." So this isn't just guys
Warren
on
Buffett.
the internet.
I know. I
Warren
saw it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? He's an idiot? What are you going to say? Warren Buffett's a conspiracy. He's going to sell that much? I don't think so.
He bought it at the end of last year, and then he pulled a 180. He's a long-term holder. For him to buy it in one quarter and sell it the next, very rare. He pulled a 180. He saw something he didn't like. He knows something. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, he knows something. And what does that digital currency look like?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's gonna be linked to everything, like your credit card, like everything. The idea is they can flip the switch off and debank you, and then you can't live. That's the ultimate goal.
Oh, beautiful. That sounds fun. Yeah. I can't wait. Okay, so back to Phinance Technologies, which is cool. So let's start with the V Damage project. Let's start with that one.
All right, so that one is pretty amazing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that's a culmination of all our work and our best guess estimates through all the work we've done. It links to all the other parts of our website. But here are the numbers. 300,000 dead conservatively, 21 and 22 excessively. That's conservative. It's probably higher. 1.36 million disabled, probably higher. And this is where we recently were just wowed, 26.6 million injured for a total of 28 plus human costs. We try to arrive at an economic number on those, the deaths, the disabilities, and the injured. And the deaths is about 5.2 billion. The disabled is 52 billion, and the injured is 89 billion. And this is measured via we went to the national accounts and we imputed the average salary. So like it's an estimate. But what we don't capture is all the productivity knockoffs that are multiples higher. So the 150 billion total estimate could be 500 billion, could be 800 billion from the productivity lost and from the resources we're going to now have to commit from good things to taking care of injured people, from the injured people who are working at half speed, to the maybe the genius who died who was going to discover all these things that we can't measure them. They're huge.
Can you imagine if you could measure that, like the genius that died, the knockoffs, and then throw in a little bit of fraud in there too?
Oh, absolutely. And the costs are astronomical. So this is a problem.
It's great. And then you have the excess morality project. I spent 2 hours on this. Just because I can't say morality right doesn't mean I don't know. I think I've become dyslexic since doing this podcast. But I literally spent 2 hours on it. Tony was like, "You got to get." I was like, "No, man. This, could you elaborate a little bit on that before I do and say things wrong?"
So basically, we have an interactive system where you can go in and plug in the age cohort or the total amount. You can play with the data any way you want, and the numbers are the numbers. So it's interactive, and you click an age cohort, it'll produce that age cohort for you. You can do total, it produces it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So this was a lot of work. This was and if in case anybody wants to question how we came up with what is excess, my 2 PhD physicist gentlemen wrote more methodology papers. We like method 2C. We have three ways of calculating it. We use 2C because it produces the best results. But a lot of people who want to question us, go read the methodology paper. There's lots of equations there.
Yeah, have fun with that one, right? Yeah. Just go have fun on the site. And then one that I think is really important is the disability project, because I can only imagine what they're doing, what BS they're doing with that. Not you, but what they're doing with disability in relation to the COVID, to whatever you want to call it. So talk a little bit about the disability project that you have going on there.
So the good news about the disability numbers that we use are from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. A lot of people say, "Oh, Ed, it's people just claiming more disability." Well, that's not the database. The database is literally self-identified disabled people, statistically imputed. So this is a big population. They ask questions: can you work? And if not, why? And is someone in your house unable to work? So they ask questions, and so.
Is that what you mean? I'm sorry, just so people understand. Is that what you mean when you say self-identify, where it's not like a robot going through a piece of paperwork or, No.
This is the household survey. It's done every month. These are, the employment report we get every month.
Yeah.
I was a member of the household survey during COVID. They used me for 6 months. They would call me every month. They have to have you on the phone, talk to you, or see you at your door.
Wow.
So.
Very good.
This U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they don't mess around because these are important economic numbers. So these disability numbers are statistically imputed from a survey, but it's gone up, and it's like they call like 50,000-60,000 people a month. So that's how they get to these numbers. It's statistically imputed. So it's not tied to a disability fraud note. It's not tied to a doctor. It's people saying, "I'm not working because I'm disabled." So that is the purest kind. That's why I love this. It's not the data isn't muddied by fraud, so to speak.
Right. It's real people, and they're saying, "I'm not working." Basically, help, in a sense.
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
Well, not help. Like they say, "Hey, are you working?" I'm disabled now. Oh, you're disabled. Check. That's it.
That's awesome. And then when people go in and they read that, what all can they find out? What all can they find out when they click on that and they go into it? Because I know a lot of, especially vets. I was on my Navy SEAL kick, Marine kick for a while, and I help out the vets and some others. And, they're just like left behind. And I think they'd find it interesting just to see some things in here.
Well, if they've been forced to take the vaccine, yes, they may have been disabled by the vaccine if it's happened recently since 2021. If they were, I know a lot of vets are probably they push it on a lot of vets, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And if you came down with something and you're in it and you got paralyzed or something weird happened, and it just happened in the last 2 years, and you got the vaccine, you're likely one of the people in my database, unfortunately, and you should seek out the frontline doctors, these other people that can help reverse these processes, or at least band together and start. Let's get a lawsuit going against somebody.
That's so cool that you're doing this, man. This is really cool that you're doing this. You don't need to do this. This really shows what kind of guy you are that you're doing this. Really, I mean that. Not just because I'm talking to you.
No, look, I came to the conclusion, I can't live in a world where I'm going to be forced to take something.
Yeah, man.
I just wasn't going to do it. I went through my own depression in 2012. I went to see a psychiatrist. It was mild depression. I got on those stupid drugs. It made it clinical. So, depression is something you can take care of. You don't need these. I'm of the belief that these things are garbage, and it almost killed me. And I nursed myself back to health through, spiritual, mental, and physical stuff. And I'll be damned if I was going to take another I was going to be forced to take some experimental goop that I knew was goop. So that there was no choice for me, Tommy. There's no choice. I just had to do it.
Yeah, I had my thing too. My mother would force me at 30 something to go. You need to go to a therapist. As soon as they asked me how my day was, I walked right out. As soon as they said, Tommy, how's your day? Here's your money. See ya. And then, long story short, I found the guy, and I was in business. I had an engineering firm, so I was doing a lot of big projects. And a couple of them I wasn't getting. And the therapist that I was forced to go to keep my very nice, crazy mother happy at the time, I walked in and I had a gold necklace on. And excuse my language, but this is when I said, okay. And he, so I walk in and he goes, what the fuck are you doing with that gold chain on when you're trying to make a $5 million or $10 million engineering firm? And I said, I'll be back. Because he talked to me like a human, it wasn't, hey, how's your day? Write a book. And it never, the other ones would try to say, hey, take this SRI. No, I threw it out the window. And I'm with you. I think spiritually and some of the new things that they won't allow here can really get you over that naturally, like earth things, And then you also have the absence.
I know where you're going with that. We'll just say earth things.
Yeah. And then you also have the absence project, which is cool.
Yeah. So absence has exploded. It's only annual data. It's from the BLS. Basically, they went up a little bit in 2020. As would be expected, confusion. They went up in 2021, but then they exploded in 2022, and they're 11 standard deviations above the 20-year trend line. So again, let's just all step back. COVID's now a cold. The pandemic's over. People shouldn't be missing work. In this amount of, the numbers are off the charts. Then you translate absence as a unit of one, missing a day or a week. That's just one. You translate that to work time hours lost. It exploded in 2022. Went up in 2020, obviously a little bit. Then 21, then 22 like this. 13 standard deviations. What does that mean? 3 standard deviations happens 0.03% of the time. So you have a normal distribution of a curve, and the tails are called tail events. They're not supposed to happen. So 3 sigmas on the tail, 13 sigmas over here in La La Land. So the point I'm trying to make is something so dramatic has happened to the population of the country. It shows up in that data. And the fact that no one's
because that over here should have never happened. It doesn't make any sense.
No. Let me put it. I was thinking about this the other night, how to explain this. I'm 56. I'm single. I got divorced 5 years ago. Let's say, a 22-year-old bombshell came up to me on the beach and wanted to ask me out. That's a three standard deviation event. Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah,
a three standard deviation. That it happens 0.03% of the time. Now imagine 25 of them in the same weekend ask me out. Bombshells 22. That's what a 13 standard deviation event is. It's insane.
Ed must have a lot of money in the bank.
Wow.
But that's really cool. So now when you take all four of these projects that we just talked about, any of other projects, sorry, I can't memorize everything about you or my brain would pop off. I tried. When you put this all together in a nutshell, what would you say the ultimate goal of it is?
The goal is we put this together, one, to alert the world, and also be used as a force multiplier and evidence that can be used in court. I mean, what we say is these numbers our governments and our health authorities see. They see them. They're not talking about them. So this is evidence of crimes to be used in force multiplier. We're also going to use it to help with our hedge fund because we have the only estimate of a vaccine damage report out there. No one else has done one. Most of Wall Street's still asleep. The unemployment rate is calculated at 3.6% right now. So the Fed is raising interest rates saying the labor market's tight, right? Well, guess what? With our vaccine damage report incorporated into it, the unemployment rate is really 2.6 because there's so many, the labor pool is smaller because of these injuries, deaths, and disabilities. So the Fed is going to continue to think the labor market's tight, but it's getting smaller because people are dropping dead, disabled, and injured. So this has real world policy implications. The Federal Reserve probably keeps rates high for too long and causes an implosion on the other side of this in the fall or next year.
Now
so that's
go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's what we're this vaccine damage report is the world as it is. We're trying to stop it. We're trying to get people to get prosecuted with this as evidence, and we're also using it for economic forecasts.
Sure.
So
you have to. Now
you have to.
Now mathematically, and I guess it would be math. How much of the COVID relief killed the workforce? Because one, I would assume, I mean, I could see it, but I'm sure you could see it on a bigger level. Companies said, oh, well, this Zoom thing works pretty good, or I can cut half my staff and I don't need to pay overtime. They're working just as hard, so on and so forth. Then you have the other end of it where people got checks and let's just be honest, they're too lazy to get off the couch and go back to work. They got too comfortable with the checks at home. They got one, they got two. So when you play that into the workforce and the economic state, mathematically or math, whatever, how much of an effect does that play into this?
Well, the COVID goodies ended a while ago. So there's always been this story that the mainstream media likes to tell is that it's the Great Resignation because COVID made people rethink the importance of life and people decided to rethink work. Well, most people need to put food on the table. I mean, okay, there aren't enough millionaires to dent the employment numbers. So the goodies left. So when Biden took over, unemployment was a little higher, but during COVID it went up. Unemployment went up, but it's come way down to 3.6. So I don't think that even factors in. There's no more COVID relief money. It's gone. The goodies are gone. And all over Maui, there's help wanted signs, but everybody I know has a job. I don't know anybody unemployed.
So you relate that all just to basically the deaths, injuries, disabilities, so on and so forth. But
I think there was some jobs have been permanently taken out, but the labor pool is smaller, I think, and that's why we have a problem. I have a car, an Audi A6. It got a fender bender. I couldn't get parts for it. it was 2011. My insurance company finally came to me after months of not being able to even get in an auto body shop because of parts shortages and labor shortages. They said, we're going to junk your car. It's worth 6. We're going to give you 10. I said, you're going to give me 10 for a 6 blue book? Okay.
Any day of the week.
But
yeah.
I'm a Wall Street guy. So I started
Wow.
asking around, and apparently the part shortages are so bad because of labor shortages that it's now more enticing for insurance companies to give you over blue book, take your car. They took possession of my car, then they sell the parts.
Chopped it. Chopped it. They chop shopped it. It's all the parts.
The insurance companies are chop shops now.
Holy shit!
That's wild.
Hey, if you need a question about your car on Kelly Blue Book, call in. Holy hell!
Yeah, the old chop shops are losing business probably. I'm guessing.
Wow, isn't that interesting? Again, the book is excellent. Finance technology is great. Before I take up, all your time, some fun questions. How fun was it? Well, how much different is it now on Wall Street than it was 5-6 years ago? Like, what's the biggest difference you see on Wall Street?
Let's go back 10 years. I mean,
sure. I'm always interested in this stuff.
Yeah. So Wall Street changed after the Great Financial Crisis. The government, people think that Wall Street took over the government. No. The government took over Wall Street. All the fraud that was committed in the Great Financial Crisis, you do realize not one banker went to jail, not one. What ended up happening? All these fines were paid. And those fines went to Obama and Biden NGOs, okay, basically, leftist NGOs. And so Wall Street changed. It became more about algorithms, and there was a shift from active investing to passive investing. So a lot of robotic trading. And old Wall Street's gone. I mean, it used to be a lot of fun. I mean, there were a lot of crooks, but you would find the crooks, and they would usually get caught. But it's a different place now. I mean, it's when I was at BlackRock, right before I left, I was a managing director, and they had me do the company grew so fast, they started to introduce an HR department that was formal, and then I had an HR module I had to watch, and if I didn't watch it, they asked me questions, so I had to watch it. One of the modules was describing millennials, and they said millennials are different than you. They don't work as hard as you, but that's okay. You can't yell at them when they miss a deadline. And I
even in Wall Street, they're saying
that was 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't yell at them. They've been brought up differently. So I got up from my chair, went into my partner's office, and I said, "What is this nonsense?"
Can you believe it?
I used to get yelled at all the time.
Yeah.
Now I can't yell. I was mad about that. Then I left BlackRock. But the point being, think about that was 10 years ago, introducing this woke snowflake. So whatever Wall Street is now, I don't think I could work there. I think people would, cry if I said something.
No, I mean, Wall Street is cutthroat. I'm a movie guy. I watch all the Wall Street movies. It's cutthroat. And then, whatever they're based on, whether they were fraud or not, Jordan Belfort. I mean, it was still, cutthroat everything. Now you can't yell at anybody. I mean, well, in life you can't say you suck or you're a bully.
I'm a millennial, but you can yell at me, so I don't fit that. I don't fit that tier. But I mean.
Well, to be honest, I hang out with mostly millennials on this island, and I'm not talking about normal. I'm talking about the ones who are the woke. The woke ones are different than the rest of you guys, because I've known plenty of millennials that are normal, but some mind virus has infected a lot of people.
It's sad,
and and because of the diversity, equity hires, they've literally brought in a lot of incompetent people.
Well, that's the thing. We talk about that. I used to always say, I forget who we had on here. I says, when you have a job opening, you should basically just hand in a resume. It shouldn't have a name. It just should say candidate A and candidate B. And they should look at what your strengths and weaknesses are in your resume and say, all right, this is the person for the job. And then you figure out, okay, it's a woman, or it's a man, or it's a a black man, a white man, an Asian man, and go from there instead of looking to fill based on certain things.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting statistic. So, women traders, it's been well known, they're on average they're better than men at trading. So then you ask yourself, well, why traditionally haven't there been women traders? Because it's a high stress job and most women don't want it. So the reason why women are better is they take less risk, they manage risk better. Most men, every now and then their ego gets in the way, the testosterone, they blow up their account. But the reason why there aren't more women because they don't want the job. And so the corporations are like the same thing in software coding. Most men are software coders. I'm hearing these abysmal stories. They're hiring women coders that don't want to code, but they're giving them money and they just sit there and do nothing because they need to fill their quotas. It's insanity.
That's insane. Believe it or not, I'm a coder by nature. Like I can code everything under the moon. Believe it or not, I mean, it's hard to believe, but I can. I can. And I can, I can't imagine it. You have to have, for me, I enjoy it. So it's a therapy type of thing.
Yeah.
But say a table. I can't build a table if you put a machine gun to my head. But if you ask me to code a Twitter post and target it at a certain audience, I could sit there for 2 hours and override the code. Again, but if you ask me to build a simple table because I have no interest in it, I would be terrible. But, from having come from there and being as successful as you were, I mean, 14 billion. And I mean, that's not a chump change there, buddy. What do you think about this college now? And if you were to go back and say you were in that firm and you were going to hire somebody, how important is that college certificate versus experience? Because at the end of the day, I mean, you're a very successful, I would say, entrepreneur. You're smart, you're intelligent. Especially with the book, you didn't fall down that path of red and blue. You just went facts, which, you could have been pulled a different way, which I think is very intelligent. How do you look at that now? Whereas, the colleges aren't teaching what they used to teach. The public schools, forget that.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned, I had a friend call me today and his son is a top sought after baseball player about to go to college. And he's, the scouts are finding him. He said, if my son, I guess apparently they can take you before college and just put you in the minors. But he said he might be able to get a $700,000, $800,000 contract. And if he washes out, they'll still pay for his college on top of that. And he said, do you think I should, I go, why are you even calling me to ask this question? Hit the bid. If you can get $800,000 for an 18-year-old, hit the bid.
Yeah.
And the kid can go to college when he's older. Who cares? Of course. College is useless.
Agreed.
I think it's useless.
Yeah. It's nothing like it was. There's nothing at all. And then the public schools. Have you seen any trends? Like what's the data coming out of when kids get out of high school now? Have you taken a look at that at all? Just out of curiosity.
No, I just know the average IQ is decreasing. I know SAT scores have been dumbed down. I know that when I went to I'm a public school kid.
Yeah, me too.
I had no indoctrination. They still offered Latin in my public high school. I took Latin and Spanish. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what they're doing there anymore because I until the last couple of years, I had no idea that public schools had become indoctrination centers, and there's no learning going on as far as I can tell.
Rob has two sons, and he was the one who told me they took wood shop out. They took what was the other one? Cooking class?
Yeah, there's a lot of different. They cut athletics, the money toward athletics, and I don't know what they've put it in, but it's sad because I think more kids should, whether you like art, which is fantastic, whether you like sports, I think every kid should have some hobby, art, sports, wood shop. And they've taken it away, and it's not good. And they drive.
No,
where do you get driving?
I'm a big believer in extracurricular activities, art, sports. Sports is super important. It builds team building. The concept of losing.
Yeah.
Not
everybody gets a trophy. You mean?
Yeah. That concept. I just don't. Homeschooling is a big trend, and I'm sure you've noticed that. That's big on Maui. There's homeschools popping up. I'm hearing about it. I think, unfortunately, we're being forced to build new systems, and that's what we're trying to do at Phinance. I mean, we're like, this system doesn't like me. I have to go create my own. That's kind of where we're at right now. A lot of people are doing that.
I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and as of this moment, I was never. If you would have asked me 8 years ago when I had a son or daughter, obviously I had a daughter, which I knew was going to happen. Definitely for sure. But before, I would have never been for a homeschool, because I'd be like, no, you're not going to stay home with your mom, and now we have this whole thing when you're older. But now I don't even know about the public or the private school. Definitely not the public school. At this point, what's your opinion? If you had a son or daughter about to go into school, would you do the homeschooling right now the way things are?
Well, so I did the private school because my ex-wife said the public schools are crap, and I took her word. So that turned out the money was. I wish I had that money, but anyways, private school is a lot of money, but homeschooling. The difference now is there's so many people that are opting into it, as opposed to 20 years ago it was the one-offs, and your kid would have been like all alone. They're pooling together, so like they do their own stuff, but then they have these networks, and they hang out. So it's like it's a different kind of thing where your daughter, if you could find one of those in your area which is good and you like the people, she'd have friends and playmates and she'd be socialized.
Yeah, that's interesting. But the private, what do you think about the private schools?
It depends on the private school. I mean, because a lot of them are super woke and ridiculous, insane. Even Catholic schools have become insane. So, like, you have to just shop carefully, my friend.
Yeah. And I hate to go back to this. It's just an interest of mine. Well, what initially got you into Wall Street? How did you end up going that route and then being extremely successful?
Well, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I read, I'm a different person than I was when I started. But like when I was young, full of testosterone and ego, I read the, and I used to drink way too much. I read the book Liar's Poker by Michael Lewis. And what's funny about this is he wrote the book as like a warning. I viewed it as a how-to guide.
Well, it worked. You know what I mean?
So
growing up, cereal was one of the best parts of being a kid. But as I got older, started working out, I had to watch out for sugar and empty carbs. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you'll love, but high protein and less sugar. The variety pack, 4 flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. This pack has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 net grams of carbs. Only 140 calories per serving. It's high protein, 0 grams of sugar, keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free. The fruity one, I'm done for. I can eat the whole box, no problem. Go to magicspoon.com/MSCS to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use promo code MSCS at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. That says something. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of high-protein cereal at magicspoon.com/MSCS and use the code MSCS to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode.
First job on Wall Street after college was I was a bond salesman. So,
oh, Christ.
And it was about, it was a lot of ego, testosterone. If you've ever been in sales, being on the top of the leaderboard, it's a young man's game, and I liked it. But then I looked, I was 24 at the time, and I looked at the 40-year-olds. They're all alcoholics, fat, divorced. And I just imagined Willie Loman, Death of a Salesman. Yeah. So I went back to business school, and then I went to the equity side of the business, which is still very competitive and cutthroat, but that's what got me on Wall Street, was trying to be a master of the universe, a big swinging dick, as they say.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And then, you don't have to, say to, go all into it, but how were you able to get to that 14 billion? It was a 10-year period that you held that, right?
Yeah. So I got the job. I got the job because I went after business school to DLJ, Johnson Luckin and Jenrette, an equity research shop. And right down the hall from me was the internet fraud. I was electric utility research. The internet boobs were down the hall doing IPOs of garbage companies. And that's when I knew I figured out how the game really worked. So then I went up in 1999 to Independence Investments in Boston to be a tech analyst. So I was a young guy going, this is all going to fall apart. This is all going to fall apart. And then I made a good name for myself. And then I got a portfolio management job at BlackRock in 2002. Yeah. And when we took it over, it was 2 billion.
Whew.
Okay. So we grew it to 14 through performance and asset gathering, meaning I would go and pitch a pension fund and they would give me 300 million. But that's
congratulations.
How
and you didn't get indicted. And you didn't get indicted in the process.
No. Equities are there's no wiggle room for fraud in equities.
Yeah, I'm just joking with you.
But I will say that I got interested in fraud and cycles, and I know there's nothing new under the sun. So it's rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Fed lowers interest rates, bubble. Fed raises interest rates, pop, fraud's exposed, down to like this. I'm a cycles guy, so I try to surf the waves. And that's the I'm not a genius, but I like to solve puzzles, and I've got common sense, and I have a good bullshit detector.
2 more questions with that, and then a couple more with the book. Do you think we're in a depression right now, and they're just covering it up? Does it look to you and when a guy of success like you, do you look at the GDP, the interest rate? When I had the engineering firm, have you been to Palm Beach before? Like Palm Beach?
Yeah.
Okay. We rebuilt the Italian restaurant at the Breakers. And this is a funny story. I had cranes there, and one of the owners, he's a big stock guy, and you could not talk to that man until 5 p.m. until that the bell rang at the on Bloomberg. So we have 2 cranes, and we're telling this guy, we're trying to call him, and you can't. He liked me, but it didn't matter, and we're like, we have 2 cranes here. You need to move everybody out of the massage thing and whatever, because if this falls, there's a big problem. You couldn't talk to this man until that bell rang. So I just lost my train of thought when I was thinking about knocking on his door when it was about to blow up.
Well, no, you said about the GDP. What do you look at?
Oh, yeah. What do you look at to evaluate and say, okay, we're in a recession, depression, whatever you want to call it? Do you look at the GDP, the interest rate? What's your accumulation of calculation for your conclusion?
So GDP is a historical measurement that tells you something that happened in the past, right? So we look at it, but what we're looking at is what we call early cycle indicators. We like to be ahead of the news. So we have a lot of secret sauce. We look at interest rates. We look at bond yield curves. We look at, I'll name one that we look at, building permits. So we put it all into a model. Carlos has got secret sauce, and we call them early cycle indicators. They started turning down in January, February of 2022, right around the time the stock market peaked. We have something called an expansion index. So it went from like plus 64% to plus 48. So second derivative, it's rolling over. Then it kept going lower, turned negative in the summer, and now it's minus 100%. We're looking for a very severe recession in the 3rd and 4th quarter. Whether it's a depression, don't know, but it could be. But we're definitely in recession right now. And all this happy talk is garbage. The other thing you should know is the yield curve is so inverted. It hasn't been this. So we're in recession, but the mainstream media is acting as if we're not, and we are. And what we're waiting for is the stock market to figure this out, and it will, and it'll probably fall in the fall. Pretty big.
And personal question about the stocks. Apple how much longer do you think that they have with this base where they really don't change anything? It's the same iPhone always, but they have such a everybody uses it. What do you feel about Apple stock, and how long do you think they have before they run out of making the same thing, or do you think they last for a lot longer yet?
So Apple is a classic growth stock. It's stopped. It's not really growing anymore, but it's a big market cap company. They've kind of penetrated every area of the globe, and they just, like you're right. They just keep kind of recycling the same stuff. Nothing's exciting. So I don't think it's not going bankrupt anytime soon, but it's not exciting to me. It's not. It's kind of the growth is over. But I will say, it's a consumer electronic company. Now they have everyone's tied into them, but let's remember Nokia was everywhere. Nokia is gone for the most part.
How about BlackBerry? Remember BlackBerry?
BlackBerry. Yeah. Motorola gone. Palm. So it's Android. It's Android, Google Android with Samsung and the Asian guys and Apple. Technology's one of those things. Something could come and disrupt it, and when it does, people will talk about how cheap Apple is all the way down. So I don't see anything yet, but it's kind of a boring stock. It's just kind of too big. There's no growth. As a growth investor, it doesn't really appeal to me.
Because when Jobs was there, it was more of like an engineering stock. They were ahead, and then he went, and then Cook just seems to be into the marketing, the expansion of music software, this, that, the other. Whereas Jobs was innovating. That's what I meant, an innovator. Where now
innovator die, and they haven't innovated, and Tim Cook is more of an operations cut costs. So the quality of the product is a lot lower than it used to be. When you hold one in your hand, it's not as heavy as the old smaller ones. And they're now cutting costs on the cords. Like your charger cord, those things disintegrate in about a week.
Yeah.
And the idea was, it's eco-friendly. But you talk to people about, because they degrade so quickly and people have to replace them, the landfills are filling up with these things. So that's not eco-friendly. So it's basically cheapness. I mean, they're building cheaps. It's cheap. The fact that the cord evaporates every 6 months is a joke.
That's insane. Maybe Elon will actually come out with that phone. He might be the one. He might be the one that could twist it. Maybe.
But he's got Starlink, so that might help.
Yeah, but maybe that's the beginning. That'd be cool just to see. And I think he would innovate it. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think you would too.
And just to top it off, the COVID vaccine provider incentive. I know we're jumping around, but when I really dug into that, boy, was that something. And this goes right back to the book. Can you elaborate on that so that people can understand? And when we say provider, we mean when you go to your PCP, when you go to your buddy doctor, correct?
Yep. You basically. Your doctor is incentivized to jab you and gets bonuses based on percentages. So the more he gets jabbed, the bigger the bonus per patient. It's a joke. I mean, this is perverse.
And what are some of the numbers that you found, if you don't mind? And if this doesn't make you want to read the book, I don't know what the hell will.
That wasn't in the book, but let me look on Twitter because I know that Thomas Massey put it out. It was like a sliding scale. Basically, if you got 75% of your practice vaccinated or your patients, you'd get $50 per patient. If you get it up to 85, it would go to 100. If you get to 95, you get 200. So there was this the more you pushed, the more money you made.
And in comparison, what were they giving for Viagra and Cialis? I bet it was close.
Yeah, but what's interesting is I've suspected this for a long time. I went to I had a general practitioner right before COVID. I moved to Maui in 2014, didn't have one, got one. And the woman was 30. I'm in great shape. I take care of myself. I pride myself on that. She's like, everything's great, but you need a statin. I go, why do I need a statin? She said, your cholesterol's a little high. And I'm like,
Cholesterol. Oh, here we
yeah,
go with the
There it
cholesterol.
is.
yeah. And I said, statins cause Alzheimer's. She said, no study's proven that. I go, well, our brains are made of cholesterol, and statins suppresses cholesterol, so it causes. She said, there's no study. I don't need a study. I just know how this works. And I walked out.
And Andy, you want to hear a funny story? Tell me about your dad. You got to hear this. This is funny.
And
This is making laugh.
My dad is 83 years old this year, and he does not believe in doctors. He'll tell a doctor straight up they're phonies and fakes. But he eats, like the fat off the bacon, the grease he cooks it in, the salt, a lot of salt on everything. And years ago, I think he went to get something tested, one of his only times at the doctor, and he was explaining to the doctor his diet, drinks beer, his whiskey, and doctor's like, you got to cut out on this stuff. This isn't good for your cholesterol, isn't good this. We're going to run some tests. And, they ran the test. The doctor came back and he goes, I don't know what you're doing. My dad's like, what do you mean? He goes, your cholesterol's perfect. Everything's perfect. He goes, yeah, it's my beer and my shot of whiskey every night that helps that. But, it's just bullshit, basically.
The funny part was his dad would eat whatever he wanted, from a butcher, never went to the doctor, never took any of the pills, never listened to the cholesterol thing. And here the guy's 83 and sharp as a whip,
Yeah, my dad's 80 and he's doing the same thing. One thing, and he's not on any pills. I don't know if you guys remember this. I do. In the 70s and early 80s, when my grandparents were dying, they were old. They just kind of dropped dead. They didn't have, and they were very vibrant with us. And, they weren't on a host of pills. Now I have horror stories of all my friends that have their parents aging that are on all these pills and they can't speak. They're losing their minds. I think something changed where like doctors basically put you on as many pills as they can just to get income. And I don't remember my grandparents ever having problems because they weren't on pills. It's like this joke now. Every elderly person's on like 7 pills or 10 pills.
True.
Yeah, they have that thing like A, B, C, D, E. They got
their little
pop
counter
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandfather, he had cirrhosis of the liver because he was just a lunatic from Italy. Then he wouldn't stop smoking cigars. They cut his thing out. So like, Tommy.
Yeah.
Just a nutcase. He lived to 85, didn't take any pills, and at one of my football games, he started falling over, and he'd be like, no, I tripped, one of those types. He'd never tell you anything. And just one Sunday, he fell over his railing and died. My grandmother was the same way. She had a restaurant, cooked gravy and all that stuff in a motel, wouldn't take any medicine from anyone, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly she got cancer, 3 weeks dead. No pills like this. Now, my mom, on the other hand, she had colon cancer. I sent her to another country to get it taken care of where they wouldn't do it here. Of course, she didn't listen to them either. Came back, but lived another 20 years. Now she had the thing that was like this, and every month it was a stent infection and this. And I totally agree with what you're saying. We never saw that with our grandparents, and there has to be a shift that all of a sudden now, you got these people walking around with briefcases of pills, whereas before they didn't, and when they croaked, they croaked.
Yeah, and their vitality is awful, and that's why they have to go to nursing homes. And it seems like it's like a racket.
Money.
It's like a racket. Exactly.
That's what my dad would say.
Yeah, it's all money.
I like your dad.
It's cool. You got it. Whenever you come in here, if you ever want to fly in, we'll have fun. You gotta come in and hang out and just joke around and just have fun with all this. Although a lot of it's just crazy.
What's it like? You're in Hawaii, right?
Maui.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
Are you in Maui or Hawaii?
Maui.
That's
Maui.
What's it like? What's it like over there now? I know. I had a friend who lived there. She moved from Hawaii just during COVID because a lot of tourists. Right, it was a lot of the income there. What's it like there now?
The tourists are back. Unfortunately, 90% of the islands are jabbed, and there are a lot of people that I'm hearing stories anecdotally all the time here on Maui. People kind of dropping dead. Ambulances are running up and down the highway. way more than they used to. I'm going to say something that's going to sound controversial. I don't know if I believe it, but last year or in 2022, politician came up to me, a local politician, and he said, "You knew what I was about because I spoke at a bunch of rallies." He said, "Ed, what are we going to do? How are we going to run the state in 10 years with half the population?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "That's what's going to happen."
Mm-hmm.
And he like, and I don't want to say that's going to happen, but somebody in the political arena was already thinking that way, which lends me to believe he might have known something. I didn't know him, didn't trust him, but that's what I heard.
Is there a Hawaii? I've never been to Hawaii. It's on my list of places to get to, but a lot of I don't know if it's Native. I'm probably gonna use the wrong term, or Polynesian, Native American. Have they been exposed to the vaccine? That community?
Yeah, so the indigenous Hawaiians, which is a blend of all sorts of different stuff, but let's call them Hawaiians. 75% of them bought this hook, line, and sinker because they are family's important to them, and the psychological pressure to like save grandma and grandpa worked on them. But the other 25% are more of the militant Hawaiians that want to like break free from the U.S. And they had nothing to do with it. And what's funny is, at the rallies I was hanging out with these people, and I said, "Look, if you take over Hawaii, just let this Maui stay, and I'll let me hang." But I had more in common with the people who wanted to secede from the U.S. than the
Again, there something's really wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's managing $14 billion. He's hanging out with those guys.
Let's take over Hawaii. Yes.
Oh man, Ed, you're great. You got to come in person. You have to.
I will. Well, when I get out to Florida, I'll let you know.
Sure. Thank you for your time. And the best place to get the book is Amazon?
Amazon, yep.
Okay. And then we got your website. We'll have all this and we'll plug it in. Financetechnologies.com. There's so much cool stuff on there. And, of course, your Twitter. We'll have that in the feed and everything. Thank you so much for your time. Ed, you're funny, man. You're a funny guy and full of geniusness and funny. I love it. You remind me of Peter.
Well, I spent my career on Wall Street. All we would do is sit around and literally insult each other all day. That was kind of that's what you did on a trading desk. And it didn't help in the early days of some of my female relationships because I didn't know how to turn it off.
Yeah.
Well, but no, you guys are a lot of fun. I appreciate your time. It's been fun.
Oh, yeah. Great time. Don't worry. I don't know if you're paying alimony, but I am. So if you are, I'm with you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Join the club, brother.
Yeah. Well, welcome. But, I look at this as a new reset to rewrite my story.
There you go. Thank you so much. You were really fun. If you're not coming to Florida soon, I'll send you we don't have a prize. I was going to say.
We'll have to make the trip to Hawaii.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
We'll come see you.
And we'll hang out with the guys who want to take it over, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to those guys. You'll love them.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Mr. Dowd. And congratulations on the book. Congratulations on the new project. And I hope this brings a lot of light to it.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. And things are going to change soon, I think.
Yeah, and then when they do, then I can just sit in here and pick your brain about Wall Street for 3 hours.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll tell some stories.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
You too. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Aurora. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is? For years, this crime rate has been surging and affecting millions of Americans. I'm talking about identity theft, and there's a new victim every 14 seconds. Yet despite this, those who have had their identity stolen are often shocked when it happens. That's why I'm excited to partner with Aurora, who is sponsoring this video. Aurora is identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software all into one easy-to-use app. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. Protect you and your family from America's fastest growing crime. Try Aurora for free for 2 weeks and see if you or anyone in your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial today. Go to aurora.com/MSCS. The link is in the description below.